I say good morning or afternoon, evening to everybody. Um, yeah, so I wanted to say a few words just to, if in case you're not aware of the scientific society that we established with several colleagues about a year ago. And so you might be interested to find out about it or join in on its activities. And it's called ISSCI, which means International Society for the Study of Creativity and Innovation. And there's a website, issci.online. And so it's a international scientific organization for essentially people who are studying creativity and or innovation. And so this society, it has the objective to promote research and education about creativity and innovation. And we have members, we have around 180 members at the moment. And they come from all different areas around the world, essentially academic members, but some are also, would say, members who are active in the entrepreneurial or associative nonprofit type world as well. And so we have seminars on the Zoom, which people can join in, where we have recent work being presented. We try to network for international projects. So if you're looking for a partner from another country or a specialty research topic on creativity, innovation for some project, you could find a partner in this network, for example. Or if you're looking to do an international study and have your study done in several other countries, you could find partners easily in this kind of network. And we also participate to support or co-sponsor some scientific events on creativity and innovation, like today's event organized by Vlad and Wendy. We are a sponsor or participating entity to help promote this event today. And there's going to be, for example, the Marconi Institute of Creativity conference in September, where we're also a partner of that event. So I hope you'll check it out, and you can see all the details on the website. Now, I would like to, well, if there's any question, of course, I'm available here for you. And I would like to say a few words about creativity and serendipity, because that's kind of one of the main topics of today's special event. And I might say some stuff that is similar or overlapping or contradictory with other things that people said, because I have not been hooked on since the very beginning of midnight, because I'm on a sleep schedule that concerns the middle of the night in bed. Okay, so please excuse me in case I do say something that's a bit overlapping to what you already heard, but I would hope to I hope to show my PowerPoint here. I have just 3 slides. So let's see if it works. Diaporama. Hopefully it will work, but this is always a little tricky business, especially in the morning when the computer is not so, 1 second.
While you're sorting that out, Todd, I'll just say that the seminars that are done and the symposium that are done monthly by the ISCCI are absolutely one of the most interesting things that I attend on a monthly basis. I really, really, really recommend them and becoming a member for that purpose, if nothing else, because there's such each month there's a range of these people whose names you've heard of, whose work you've researched, they're able to come and talk to you about it. And it's a really, really fantastic opportunity. So I will push my marketing spiel on that as well. It's definitely, definitely worth considering.
Okay, great. I think that I am having a unexpected computer event, which I'll attribute it to serendipity. And so
disruptive, Todd, that's because you were there for my talk, you can say this is a disruption in the cognitive trajectory.
Okay. So yeah, I thank Wendy for that comment. And just so you know, we do try to have a monthly Zoom event, and some colleagues who are part of that ISSCI network, they present work that is very fresh or new, for example, okay, that's perhaps just in progress or coming out, not yet published, sort of thing. In fact, since I have a little PowerPoint problem, I'll attribute it to serendipity, and I'll just tell you the story direct, live. I'll go like old style, post PowerPoint, or new style, post PowerPoint. And so what I'd like to say is that I looked into the details of the story of the three princes of Serendip, because that is attributed to be kind of the basis of the serendipity notion, okay? With a guy named Horace Walpole, who in 1754 coined this term serendipity based on this story. Now, this story comes from an English translation, from an Italian translation, from a story that came from Persia. Okay, and in this story, it's about three princes who are in the place called Serendip, which is Sri Lanka or Ceylon in the old day. And they are the princes of the king, and he had them trained and educated by very eminent scholars of the time, and they had learned a lot, and they had scientific knowledge and all kinds of knowledge. And before they were supposed to become taking over the kingdom, he thought they ought to go out and see the world. And so he sent them out on a trip, and they went away, and they came, I suppose, based on the story, into the land of Persia. There they saw a camel. Well, they didn't see the camel. They saw evidence of a camel who had passed through. Because they saw the track of the camel, they saw stuff on the side of the road that probably the camel had left. And they deduced there was a camel based on the track. They deduced that this camel had a hurt leg or foot because there was a dragging of a foot and 3 camel tracks normal. They deduced that the camel had eaten grass and had spit it on the side of the road, and the size of the grass that was spit out suggested the camel had a tooth problem, and it fell out of the side of his mouth through one of the holes where a tooth was missing. There was also a footprint of a person, which they determined was a woman, probably pregnant woman, based on various other little evidence they noticed, okay? Because she had knelt down, and to get back up, she had used her hand, and there was also some other liquid on the ground suggesting it was a pregnant woman. And there were other indications. And so they had come to this conclusion that with all this, what they had observed very carefully, okay, that it was indeed a camel with a missing tooth carrying a pregnant woman, and the camel was carrying some honey that dripped on one side on the ground and butter that dripped on the other side. Well, then they came upon a merchant who was looking for his camel. And they said, oh, was it the camel who was carrying a pregnant woman with honey and butter and had a foot problem? And he goes, yeah, that's the camel I'm looking for. The only way you know about my camel is you stole it. So he brought them in to the king, the emperor Beramo of the time, and he said, punish these three guys, okay? And the Beramo said, how is it you know about this camel? And they said, we deduced it from all the evidence we found. And so it was determined that they were very smart and intelligent, and they should be honored and not killed. And they didn't have, and then the camel showed up. And that's, so then the story goes on. Now, this is the story. From this story, which has almost nothing to do with a happy accident, okay, that they weren't looking for. Because most serendipity stories are like the Fleming type story where something happens, he wasn't really looking for anything, and he found something strange that happened and he investigated it, okay? Or the Velcro story where the guy is taking a walk with his dog and he's got velour pants on and something sticks to it and he examines it. He wasn't looking to discover it, but when he looked under the microscope, he observed how this thing got stuck on his pants and he discovered a mechanism of Velcro. So in almost all these stories, the people have knowledge. It is not a random person who discovered bacteria. It's not the random person who discovered all these things. Usually it's somebody who's in a domain, has knowledge, and something by chance happens and they take notice and they examine it. They decide to examine it. And so the story of the Princess of Serendip is a detective story. In fact, Voltaire in Zadig retook this story in a different way, and it became a kind of a model of the detective novel, okay? And so these people, they saw something and they tried to figure out, what does it mean, these signs on the side of the road? So they were like investigators, in fact. And so there was, let's say, the chance that they happened on this camel's track, but they were curious and they tried to think what it could mean, okay? So it suggests, I'd like to say, that first of all, the connection to creativity is a little bit, let's say, it's not direct, okay? So in a way, serendipity is what you could call a traveling concept. The serendipity concept comes from a story of the princes of Serendip. It got transformed into a kind of capacity, a kind of situation-person interaction, and it got applied over many years more and more to be connected with creativity and a lot with scientific discovery. And so the concept itself has evolved. The concept in a sociological way has traveled from its original point of story creation to become something that could even be studied. And as Auguste presented, we could be interested in pseudo serendipity, so which is yet another evolution of the concept. And so first, it's an example of a chain of associations that has offered new insight. And second of all, it's really a story that points out that there is this, we could call selective encoding mechanism, in which they come upon some facts and figures, they come upon some evidence, and they see in it something that other people would not see, okay? And this is a kind of an insight mechanism which has been discussed in the creativity literature. Now, it is often said, I'd like to end with this slight observation and allow some time for discussion, of course, or questions and discussion. It is often said that chance favors the prepared mind. That is a quote from Louis Pasteur, okay? However, that is not exactly what Louis Pasteur said. If you read in French what he said, chance favors only the prepared mind. Okay? So there's a slight difference there. Chance, it favors only those who are ready are well positioned to benefit from this so-called chance event. So if you are not, according to Pasteur, if you don't have the necessary knowledge, you will not benefit. Okay? So this is illustrated by this story because the princes were trained in science before they left for their trip. It's also interesting that the princes went away from their natural, normal environment. And so they were in an exploratory mode to discover the rest of the world. So they were in a process of looking for new things to develop their experience in the world. And so they were in what we might call a pseudo serendipitous moment because they had put themselves on a trip in a foreign land. It wasn't that they were just sitting around at home and a camel, well, and there was evidence on the street in their kingdom that some camel had passed by. In addition, camels do not tend to pass in Sri Lanka, by the way. You tend more to get elephants hanging around. So already, that is just to introduce you to some of the details of the story and to try to open up the space of discussion around the three princes of Serendip. And I see also Vlad has joined in.
I was always here, Todd.
Oh, yeah, we're always here.
Always
Yeah,
there.
well, I
In
saw
the
your
background.
name, but sometimes it's like with Zoom, you're there, half there, at least your name is there. But I imagine very well Vlad and Wendy on this 24-hour marathon. I salute their effort. And I say it's good training if you want to be part of the 24 hours of Le Mans, to drive your car on the route 24 hours.
We were wondering what we were going to do next. Maybe we can do a conference whilst driving. That would be, and we have to switch sharing and driving at the same time. I'd be up for that.
I say we just put on our CV that we can stay up 24 hours and that's that. We leave it at that. Anyway, thank you so much, Todd. No one told the story of Serendip yet. So from midnight till now, right, Wendy? I think.
No, absolutely. And what I'm going to do is show this book to anyone that was really interested, but it's all shiny. But this is a book by Robert Merton and Eleanor Barber, which has a wonderful story in itself anyway. But if you are interested in the history of the word serendipity and how exactly, I really loved your idea of it being a traveling concept. This is a really, really fantastic book. So I'll put a link to it in the chat for people. So does anybody have any questions for Todd before we before I launch into asking him a load? I have to give people a second to type. Okay, so Todd, it was interesting. So, oh no, that's just somebody coming in. Sorry, all the buzzing. I really liked your idea of a traveling concept, and I wondered what made you go back to the origin of the word serendipity when you were sort of thinking about this, and then watching how it's moved.
What made me
go back to the origin of the word first? What
origin of the word? Well, I was aware of this. The three princes of Serendip was the origin of the word. I was aware because chance has it as they say, I was invited to participate in an event that happened on Zoom in Grenoble in France, which was sponsored by the Commission for Atomic Energy, a bunch of scientists who study stuff that's like nuclear. And their day, several months ago, was about serendipity and creativity and trying to boost the serendipity events of their atomic scientists who work over there, okay? And so at that moment, I had looked up stuff because I'm not especially working on serendipity at all, except I was collaborating with Auguste and others when Auguste did his PhD, which he presented a few minutes ago on the video. And it was there that I happened on the story of the three princes of Serendip as the origin of the word. And I looked up the story and I read it and I realized that it's pretty deconnected with everything we talk about concerning serendipity. And I found that pretty funny.
It's also pretty deconnected from what Walpole says in his letter.
Right.
That's where people can, and I see that Peck's arrived, and he will undoubtedly be able to tell us a lot more about this when it comes to his talk. But it means it gives us lots to talk about as a research field, because we still don't even know what we're talking about, which means it's a job, right, for a long time. But you're absolutely right, and I think it's something that Chris Napolitano says. He says it's a wonderful hook for people. It's so open as an idea in the letter and things. It's a wonderful hook for people to just hang whatever preconceptions that they want onto it, which does definitely tend to happen.
Yeah, well, yeah. like many things in many concepts in science, they are a moving target. So most concepts are traveling concepts. Well, in fact, a concept that's a traveling concept, I was in a interdisciplinary seminar that Frédéric Darbellay had organized some years ago. And that's where I happened to find out about traveling concepts, which are concepts taken from one field and brought into another. And as they're brought into the other field, they transform in their meaning because they get mixed with some stuff from the new field. And so it is itself an interesting creativity mechanism when a concept travels. And it's somewhat related to some creativity techniques where you take a concept from another domain, you try to apply it in your problem domain. And that is the source of some creativity techniques. And so serendipity is actually an example of a traveling concept. There are some things in the chat like, does chance only favor the prepared mind? Well, that's what Louis Pasteur said. He's unfortunately dead and cannot reply to that question.
It wasn't in brackets as well. I find this really interesting in terms of how we treat these concepts, because this is an aside that Louis Pasteur made in a lecture that he gave. So it's not like he developed a fully fledged concept of the prepared mind. He just said, well, because we all know that chance only favors a prepared mind. And this has been taken now and it's generated an entire sort of a thing has been created from this one person's aside. I hope one day I'll have that much influence, but yeah. And
this is not business for you.
What?
I don't know.
That? Who was that? Was that Pasteur?
That was Pasteur coming in to correct us.
Oh my God. The dead are on Zoom?
Yeah, that's how it works.
Always.
Oh my God. Okay, wait, there's another question here. Do you consider preparedness to take advantage of serendipitous occurrences and events?
Maybe we just ask the person to mute, and I'm going to.
No, but everybody's muted. That's the weird thing, Vlad. I'm checking. Everybody's muted.
There we go. Okay.
Everybody's muted apart from Todd and you and me. And it is. The second you invoked him, Todd, that's what happened.
Yes. We have invoked Pasteur. Okay. Do you consider preparedness to take advantage of serendipitous occurrences and events to be attributable to an underlying cognitive orientation or the result of knowledge and erudition? I think that this knowledge and learning you had could position you to be ready to observe something in the what might happen unusually that you come across. Okay, but just because you have knowledge does not mean that you will observe anything. You have to be, let's say, having a certain openness or a certain availability in your mind to take note of the thing. If you're in a super rush and you're a super expert in a super rush today, you won't have time to notice and examine this unusual thing you might pass by. So to have the knowledge is very important, probably, to be able to understand that what you're observing is something strange and worth looking into. But it doesn't mean it's going to happen. And if you just have availability and you just observe something and you think it's weird, but you have no idea what it might mean, and you have no knowledge at all of any topic that could make it relevant, you'll just have observed some weird thing that you don't understand. And maybe you'll be able to find somebody in a cocktail party and tell them, and they might be a specialist of it and be able to study it.